Welcome to today's CRM Magazine web event, brought to you by Looker. I'm David Myron, Editorial Director of CRM Magazine, and I'll be the moderator for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled, The Journey to Better Sales Analytics at UpCounsel. Before we start, allow me to explain how you can participate in this live broadcast. At the end of the event, there will be a question and answer session. If you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box provided and click on the Submit button. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been answered during the show, you'll receive an email response to it within a few days. Plus, if you'd like a copy of the presentation, you can download a PDF from the resource icon at the bottom of the console once the event is archived. Now, to introduce our speakers for today's event. Dylan Morrison is the Product Marketing and Analytics at Looker, and Brad Ruderman is the Director of Analytics at UpCounsel. To review the speakers' bios, please click on the arrow under the speakers' photos. So now, without further ado, let me pass the event over to our first presenter, Dylan Morrison, Product Marketing and Analytics at Looker. Welcome to the broadcast, Dylan.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. And thanks for the intro there. Speaking to our topic here, the journey to better sales analytics. So I'm going to start out by just giving some brief background, and then I'll let Brad take it away with explaining exactly how this is done at UpCounsel. So really, the first question to answer is, what is sales analytics? What's the point of doing it? The way we're speaking to it, sales analytics encompasses all of the analysis and processes conducted along your entire sales lifecycle. One aspect of this is the automation of repeated tasks to help save sales reps time and just improve general efficiencies. This is more related to a company's CRM than their sales analytics capabilities. That's pretty well understood, and I'll discuss that a bit throughout the presentation as well. But another aspect, and something we're going to be focusing on, is really impacts top-line growth. So every company and each individual sales rep at these companies usually has a sales quota and goals that they're tied to on, say, a yearly or quarterly basis. To meet these goals, sales reps need to have initial contact with the customer and see that customer through until the sale. Unless you're a company that's really overflowing with inbound demand gen, and if you are, I'm a little bit jealous of you, a company really needs to generate these leads from somewhere. Sales analytics is all about targeting the best types of customers and helping improve the internal processes and tactics that then convert those leads to customers. So it's about making the funnel bigger, but it's also about increasing your conversion rates as well. And below you'll see a sampling of some of the specific questions and problems that sales analytics seeks to resolve. Things like providing a central workflow tool, managing and forecasting your pipeline, tons of other relevant questions to your sales org. So most people do, or most companies do, their sales analytics in a CRM. What's often overlooked is the difference between the operational and the analytical functions of a CRM. Most companies use their CRMs correctly for operations, meaning they automate repeated tasks very well, but they fail to really seize on the analytical potential of their sales data. For that reason, I'm going to talk through some of the typical barriers customers face when conducting analytics in their CRM. And these are the barriers I've laid out on the slide right here. We have centralization, workflow integration, and customization. And I'll elaborate on all these a bit, but before I do, we have a quick poll question for you all here, and I think I'll kick it back to David for this, but what we really want to know is what tools you're using to conduct your CRM right now, or conduct your sales analytics right now.
All right, thank you, Dylan. So you should see the poll question appearing on your screen now. And the question reads, what tools do you use to manage your sales data and analysis? Please select all that apply. You can select Salesforce or other CRM, manual reconciliation, Excel, data analytics tool, or file sharing. And while we're waiting for the poll results, I'd like to take this time to inform you about our upcoming CRM Evolution Conference from May 23rd to the 25th at the Omni Shoreham Hotel in Washington, D.C. There you can join CRM analysts, consultants, project leaders, and vendors to learn how to take your CRM efforts to the next level. For more information, you can visit crmevolution.com after the webinar. Okay, it looks like the poll results are in, so why don't we go ahead and post those. And in response to what tools do you use to manage your sales data and analysis, it looks like 75% of you selected Salesforce or other CRM, followed by manual reconciliation, 62%, and then file sharing, Google Docs, Dropbox at 37.5%. And then a quarter of you selected data analytics. So it looks like an interesting smattering of results here. Companies appear to be choosing several of these responses, most leading with or most having Salesforce or the other CRM. With that, I'd like to now hand it back over to Dylan.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Cool. So yeah, those results, that's pretty much in line with what we'd expect to see. And I'm glad the CRM was the leading one because that's primarily the pain points we're speaking to here, but also the manual reconciliation as well. And again, as I was mentioning, this is very common. Most of the companies we interact with, at least during our initial contact, are using CRM, most commonly Salesforce, to do all their analytics. So now I'm going to run quickly through some of those problems I was outlining, why these CRMs are kind of prohibitive to actually creating a really data-driven environment and conducting proper sales analytics. So the first problem is you need to centralize all of your data. Nowadays, there's more data and more data sources than ever before. Extracting and linking all this data is critical for sales analytics. It's critical to get a comprehensive real-time view of your sales performance and your pipeline. It's critical to understand your customer profile and your historic performance with that type of profile, and for plenty of other types of analysis as well. You can see here 5 types of data that really should be considered when conducting sales analytics. I've also noted which data typically actually ends up in the CRM and which data never really makes its way into the platform. In practice, virtually 0 companies actually have all of this data in their CRM, or at least I've never seen it before, and frankly, if someone did, it would probably be a pretty inefficient way of doing it, since you're needing to go in and create all these custom objects, have each individual sales rep inputting subjective information for things like transactional, web, and product usage data. And so it really wouldn't be a very efficient way to actually run your organization. So as a result, sales teams often get a very incomplete understanding of their customers and their pipeline. To conduct any meaningful analysis, sales reps or managers have to spend time manually downloading and reconciling this data, like we saw among, I think, 62% of you. This is probably done on a daily or even weekly basis. Well, you can actually eliminate this process of manual reconciliation with a central database. Nowadays, if you're looking for consistent and meaningful analysis, centralization is generally understood to be a prereq. If users actually do want to link separate sources together or data from separate sources, they need to make a request of their data team. In this environment, the data team is the only one with access to all of the various data sources. The data team typically has a long list of questions they need to write queries for, so the user's request usually falls to the back of the line. What this ends up doing is causing the problem you're seeing on the left here, a data bottleneck problem. When there's a data bottleneck, users can't iterate on their analysis. So what this means is if a user notices a certain trend or pattern, that user can't drill down to find out what is really driving that trend or pattern. And you're ultimately missing out on meaningful information that could actually result in changes to a user's day-to-day decision-making process. No one can really anticipate the follow-up questions that someone will ask prior to seeing any analysis or seeing a visualization. So this bottleneck just creates a huge roadblock for really conducting insightful analysis. The other outcome that results from a non-centralized environment is what we have on the right here and what we call data chaos. In this scenario, if a user doesn't have the data they need to make decisions from their data team, they may just run off and conduct analysis on their own. This is typically only done using siloed data from one application, which means users are really getting an incomplete picture. Either that or users are jumping between a million different tabs, between web data and your CRM data and maybe your transactional data, and manually downloading all of that and reconciling it in Excel. Additionally, another problem that emerges from this is users may be calculating metrics differently. So if you have 4 different people running off and doing their own analysis, things like gross margin, A minus B, that's fairly trivial analysis. But when you're talking about more complex types of problems, things like affinity analysis, for example, if I buy item X, what is the likelihood I buy item Y or do action Y? There's a few statistically defensible ways you could go about doing that analysis. So it's very reasonable to assume that if 4 different people try to calculate this metric, they'll arrive at 4 different numbers. And I'm sure a lot of people here have seen that manifest itself in different ways throughout your organization on various projects. Again, all of this leads to what is fundamentally a prohibitive workflow for your users and their ability to make informed decisions. So lastly, you need the ability to customize your metrics. You need the ability to create metrics that accurately capture the behavior or performance that you're trying to analyze. We put out tons of content related to this topic, all of which you could find on our website, so I won't speak to it for too long. But here's a few examples below. And again, many of the CRMs are designed primarily for operational use. So looking at Salesforce, for example, the vast majority of times it's used for automating sales activities, such as tracking and converting leads, etc. Sometimes these CRMs have native analytical tools, but often they're very limited. You can only create certain types of reports. There's limited flexibility to create new reports or any analysis or really complex calculations. And since the data is usually taken directly out of Salesforce for analysis, you're losing your centralization. You're not doing everything in one application now that you're taking data away from Salesforce. So it's difficult to effectively deliver the data to business users in a consistent and reliable way. Many of the types of analysis that are really crucial for sales analytics just can't be done in Salesforce or most CRMs. And again, here's a few examples. There's an overall performance dashboard which shows performance versus goals for current and previous periods. We also have historic snapshot analysis, which allows you to compare pipeline projections for your current versus previous periods. So maybe you're looking at it last quarter or looking at it from a snapshot of last quarter and seeing how you projected your leads to convert throughout the quarter. And now that it's the beginning of the next quarter, you can go back and see how you actually sold compared to what you assumed you were going to sell. And that can really help you refine your forecasting processes and really allow you to deliver more accurate results and revenue to your quotas. These are just a few examples of customized analysis. There's many other types we'd be happy to share as well. And again, there's tons of resources on our website about this. So how are people solving for these CRM issues? More and more companies are turning to data platforms like Looker to handle their sales analytics. So Looker works off of a centralized database, so all sources are linked together. If this is a really easy way to deliver consistent analysis centralization, why isn't every company doing it right now? Well, 10 years ago, it was much more difficult to do and really didn't make much sense because databases weren't powerful enough to store and process all of the data that's coming from this wide array of sources. However, in the last decade, recent advances in technology has made the process of centralization easier than ever. So new ETL vendors, you have open source migration code, and even architecture like Lookers, where you can define transformations in our modeling layer rather than in the back-end ETL process. These make proper centralization really achievable in just days, whereas previously it would have taken months. Then after this initial effort, any user can pull any data they need from any source they want without ever needing to know SQL. I'm happy to answer. I realize this is kind of a heavier process, or seemingly used to be. Again, it's much lighter now. So if you have any specific questions about your current setup or about some of our ETL partners, please don't hesitate to reach out after the call or after the webinar. We'd be happy to have any of our analysts or myself jump on the phone with you and really walk you through what we think the best solutions would be for your current technology and your business needs. Looker also, I mentioned, works off of a modeling layer, which is where the transformations and business logic are all defined. This modeling layer is really just an abstraction of SQL, so it's as flexible as SQL, meaning it's infinitely customizable. Anyone with SQL knowledge can create this data model and define metrics just the one time, and then again, they're reusable for everyone in the organization, just using Looker's intuitive drag and drop UI. So already we have the centralization and the customization pieces taken care of. And the last piece is just your workflow integration and automation. So this Looker's UI, which I was just mentioning, and the drag and drop interface, that's a major factor in improving workflows as well, since any user can pull data they need without ever needing to go through their data team or conducting any manual downloads. Looker also integrates with other tools such as Slack. We have live connections to Google Sheets or Excel, so whenever you open that sheet or Excel tab, the data will refresh based on a call from Looker. And we even have the ability to embed Looker dashboards within other applications. So at the bottom here on the right-hand side, you can see where we embedded a visualization back into Salesforce. And this really allows the users to access all the information they need in one view, which is proven to really help users adopt data and analytics to really drive their decisions. There's tons of research out there on this topic as well, which we'd be happy to share. It's really just much easier to make a quantitatively informed decision if the numbers are right in front of you in your application, rather than having to jump around and look a ton of different places to find these numbers. So without any further explanation, Brad has some really awesome examples of this in practice, so I'll sort of let him take it away.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Dylan, for that. And yeah, let's call Brad Ruderman, who is the Director of Analytics at UpCounsel. Brad, welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, everyone. Really excited to be here to talk about Salesforce and how we've used Looker at UpCounsel. Just to kind of start things off, I thought I'd give a little bit of background about UpCounsel. We are a B2B marketplace, which means that we've been referred to as the Uber for lawyers, where businesses are demand and lawyers are supplies. And when we say B2B, we really mean everything from small, medium, large, enterprise, even customers that can use our platform to hire a great lawyer. We're a transactional model, and we're not a SaaS company, and our KPIs are somewhere mixed between an e-commerce business and a SaaS business. We think of our customers as being both our clients who need to hire attorneys, but also our actual attorneys and them using our platform. Our goal is to build tools to help attorneys, but also create a remarkable legal experience for our customers. Typical person that we're going to work with at a company is a general counsel, a COO, a VP of sales. We do a variety of legal needs, sales contracts, NDAs, employment, general business, patents, trademarks, even LLC formations, and finally immigration. We're located in San Francisco. We've been around for about 3 years. A little bit about me. I am the Director of Analytics, and it means I'm responsible for 4 areas. The first being data engineering. That's all the ETL, the plumbing, the data warehousing. Second area is reporting and analytics, dashboards, KPIs, ad hoc analysis, any type of question that we would want to answer from our data. The third area would be data science. So that's both data products, that's algorithmic things we do inside our application, but also analysis and modeling that we do outside of our app. And finally, the fourth area is internal tools. So that's CRM, marketing, email, admin, operational tools, things that we use to empower our internal customers. So I've been a Looker customer for only about 6 months, and really a Salesforce customer for just over a year and maybe a little bit more. So it's really kind of interesting, and I think we'll show some cool stuff that we've done. Being responsible for both data engineering and reporting analytics, as well as internal tools, has given me this foresight and insight into how to best leverage my data tools for things that you might not typically think to do. When we are kind of a smaller company, we're only 30 people, so it's important that we, when we purchase a vendor product, or that when we purchase, whether it's a CRM or a data platform, that we really use it at like 110, 120% of what it was originally intended for. A little bit more about UpCounsel. We are a super data-driven business. This is a look which shows that, over the past 30 days, around every one of our employees has spent about an average of 40 minutes. That's an incredible thing. Each employee, almost 10% of their time, they're actually in the Looker platform, something we're really super proud about. Being data-driven for us kind of really means 3 specific things. The first is, once again, using data as a product. Like, what kind of algorithmic things can we do, whether it's pricing, whether it's matching, finding the best attorney for the best client, whether it's creating recommendations and things of that nature. The second is really using data for analysis and growth, and figuring out, how are the specific product features that we're doing, what are our KPIs, what causes that lock-in and that addiction on our product from both our customer, our client side, and our attorney side. And then the last area, and I think really the most interesting one, is using data as a tool to run the business. And this means that there are sales reps, there are account managers, there are operational people that are really using data and the data platform that we've created at UpCounsel to help their everyday job. And that's really shown by just the sheer amount of time that they're spending on the platform. To get things started, I think it's clear to kind of give the full story around data at UpCounsel and really tell a little bit specifically about our sales, and then show you, actually give a live demo of our Salesforce implementation. Our company is organized into sort of 3 different verticals. The first being product and data, meaning those are our engineers, our data scientists, our data analysts, our product managers. The second being our marketplace. These are our marketing people, growth and acquisition, support and operations, attorney onboarding. And then finally, our sales vertical. And when we think of what is that profile of person, we think of our product and data people as truly being the data modelers, the people that are comfortable, and I think Jason showed this a lot in his slide, but really comfortable being that data analyst and going straight to our data warehouse to pull out data, versus our salespeople, who are more on the consumer side and only going to kind of consume what we build from them. And then there's this large vertical that's somewhere in the middle where they want to explore and they want to figure out how to drive their everyday job and become more efficient and use data to help their life. But at the same time, they're not as technical as the data modelers. And this is the true vertical that I think is really, really important to focus on, as well as trying to figure out how can we shift people that are traditionally data consumers into this more of a data exploration. Just to give some context as to what type of tools we're using at UpCounsel. On the sales side, we are using Salesforce. We are also using email is a big thing, and that stretches across the different verticals. Finally, one of the areas that I want to highlight is Truly. They're a phone system, and I'll come back to that later. On the marketplace side, we're using things like paid acquisition through Google AdWords. We're using things like Marketo. Our application as itself is also a big source of data for us. And each one of these different products and each one of these different tools serves as a source for data. And these are the types of things that we try to bring into our warehouse. Showing you sort of that history of how UpCounsel kind of originally did data, I thought it'd be important to show kind of what we did pre-Looker. And this is originally a tool that we used for data exploration, data analysis. And it really was meant to be a Looker kind of precursor. And it was a custom application that was built within a few days. And the idea was to show custom reports. Being able to write SQL queries was a critical thing. You had to write a SQL query, and then that SQL query was combined with some custom filter data, and ultimately it showed a report to each one of our team members. And they would log into this tool and see. And our reporting tool would also serve as a dashboard for our company KPIs, and it was also a place to do the random stuff that our application couldn't do. And it kind of worked for our data consumers. Very, very limited. They could go in, they could see the reports, they could click on the things that they needed to do. But it definitely didn't work for our data explorers, the people that actually wanted to go and change things and explore and really deep dive on the types of things that they were doing every day. They would have to wait on a data analyst to produce the report. Looking specifically at our old sales dashboard, this was what it looked like, and it was the biggest complaint was, one, it was not being in Salesforce, right? You had to leave Salesforce to come to this custom application, and it created this crazy kind of workflow. The second being everything was very aggregated. There was no drill down capabilities. When you saw a number, you couldn't click on that number and see what that raw data was or see where it was coming from or take action on it, which is really something that's most important. The third is really that there was no visibility into how the number was being calculated. If there are certain nuances in the calculation, whether it's sales credit or sales attribution, there's no transparency in that. And when we raised our Series A, we really said to ourselves, hey, how can we know our company is going to be growing as a team. This means that we're going to be growing the number of data explorers and data consumers, but not necessarily the data modeler side of things. And we needed a platform that we could make as a strategic investment that would allow us to meet these exploration type needs. And I think Dylan hit the nail on the head on this, but he really focused on data modelers as a super kind of fixed cost. And we also think of that as the same. And how can we kind of remove that as a bottleneck? We evaluated a variety of platforms with our top requirements being the exploration capabilities as number one. The second being the ability to drill down on specific aggregates and really see what that underlying data was. The third being making that logic visible, showing what the ETL process is like. Where is everything being sourced from? How is it being calculated? How is it being transformed? And finally, the last is visualizations. Our sales team members are really visual people. They want to be able to see funnels. They want to be able to see graphs and charts. It's really a quick and easy way for them to kind of understand the data and take better action on it faster. When we decided on Looker, we really purchased it for kind of four main reasons. Four main reasons. The first is that data exploration, that data visualization component. The last is the dashboarding, but finally as a BI platform. And that's really what I'm going to focus some time on here, is talking about how we're using Looker, not just for data analysis, data exploration, or the typical things, but actually embedding it as part of a sales rep's workflow. And this has saved us time on ETL. It saved us time on Salesforce integration costs and not having to pay a traditional consulting company or somebody with deep Salesforce knowledge to build that integration, but us being able to do it ourselves. So when I talked about kind of leveraging a tool at 120, 130% of its original intention, that's the type of things I'm talking about. To show our sales dashboard today, this is it, and you can see it's super visual, right? And it's built entirely inside Looker. Everything is drill downable. Everything is clickable. There's no notion as to what does this number mean. You can click on any one of the numbers and sort of see what its aggregate is, and see where it comes from. If you think of us raising our Series A and growing our sales organization, we looked at our Salesforce users going from 3 users to 12, and they had a familiarity with Salesforce, but a very, very limited technical skill set. And the idea is we wanted our sales reps and we wanted people using Salesforce to spend 100% of the time on their phone selling, not time necessarily figuring out and moving between flows and different applications. And the idea was how can we use Looker to create a better workflow for them? And the way we did that was by embedding Looker inside Salesforce, and I'm going to give a live demo of that. But to start, I wanted to just kind of touch on what does our data architecture look like. So our data architecture is about taking data not that exists in Salesforce and moving it into our custom warehouse, and then Looker sits on top of our custom data warehouse and then is embedded inside Salesforce. And it seems kind of counterintuitive that we are pulling our data out of Salesforce to then push back into Salesforce, but I actually think that it's really, really powerful. And the way that we do it is using cron scripts that I've built to pull our data into our custom database. And Salesforce data is inherently relational. And if you can get it into your own custom warehouse, then you can truly do a lot better analytics than Salesforce offers out of the box, in our opinion. Traditionally, getting data out of Salesforce has been super challenging, and that's where you see that I've built these custom cron scripts, but there are plenty of other turnkey integration partners that make this super easy. I am a big proponent of pulling data out of Salesforce. I've listed some of the partners on the slide here, but if you have any questions or if you guys are Salesforce users and want to get your data and free yourselves from Salesforce Analytics, please contact me. It's something that I'm really happy to help anybody out with. Going back to our data architecture, I think this is the big kind of aha moment that we had, which is this idea we are pulling our data outside of Salesforce and into our custom data warehouse. We are also pulling data from all of our other sources that were shown earlier, that the different tools that our ops team and our internal tools are using, and we're also pushing that into our warehouse. So this gives us the capabilities of being able to put our data from different sources next to each other and then using Looker and then push that data back into Salesforce natively through Looker. And that's something that's really, really powerful. This idea that it's not just about kind of calibrating and changing the way your Salesforce data looks, but it's actually about enriching your Salesforce data. It's about, adding things that traditionally wouldn't be inside Salesforce. Things like calling data, things like paid acquisition data, things like emails. And this has not only been really, really great from an integration component, but it's also a cost savings measure because Salesforce does charge on the integration level, with things like API calls and things like data storage. And leveraging our custom data warehouse and leveraging the tools that we already pay for internally and allowing us to do that ETL process has been really powerful. So I'm going to transition into a live demo right now. So just give me 1 second. Great. So I'm assuming everybody can see my screen now. And I am logged into Salesforce as a sales rep. And you're looking at the same dashboard that I showed you earlier, but it's actually natively inside Salesforce. So when our sales reps log into Salesforce, they're no longer seeing, the kind of out-of-the-box home screen that you would see or any dashboard that they've created. They're seeing this custom dashboard that we've created inside Looker and then embedded inside Salesforce. And this shows sort of a high-level summary of all the things that are going on with the sales team. Where are people at with their metrics this month? What are these numbers? Every single one of these numbers is sort of drill downable. But the cool part is this is not just Salesforce data. This is actually data coming from the UpCounsel platform. These postings are things that are not Salesforce related at all. They're actually UpCounsel related. And these activities some of them are Salesforce, but some of these other activities are things like calls or things like emails that they send or specific things. And this is like a really visual way of kind of seeing the data and really makes it super convenient for our sales reps who don't have to kind of leave Salesforce to see this. If you think about how can we create a more individual, how do we fill back into workflow? The second sort of tab that I really want to highlight here is our sales rep individual dashboard. So you can see I'm logged in as a sales rep. And I've actually passed the context of being that sales rep into Looker. And now I'm looking at a dashboard that is specific to me as this sales rep. And I'm seeing a lot of different views that allow me to take action on the data, things like how many first postings that I have. And I can click on any one of these sort of numbers and drill into the specific details and see, what is the user's name or what is that current estimated status. Also, as a sales rep, I can really see, what does my pipeline look like, right? How many calls do I have completed in short-term follow-up? Where are my different leads following right now? This is all specific to me. This is all secure under authentication. I removed a lot of some, user-specific data for this demo, but I really did want to highlight just the power of what you're looking at. And if you can see any one of these, this is a flow right here, which is like, hey, here are things that are specific to me. I can click on these tasks, and these are tasks that I now need to take action on, see what are those specific tasks, and then I can actually click on each specific task and drill into that task specifically by going to UpCounsel or going into Salesforce. So to give an example, here's a marketplace job that was just posted on my behalf, and I can click a link right here, be immediately taken to UpCounsel as a platform, and see that this is a Looker job that they want help looking for legal counsel to help their sales team with contracts, and have all that information about our job, and then filter over to our proposal section and see, what are the proposals, so that when I'm about to get on a phone call with this customer, I'm going to tell them, here's the status of everything, and I can shift quickly back to Salesforce and seeing that kind of valuable information. In addition, we're using this as sort of a compliance, making sure our sales reps are adhering to the rules that we've set in place. Making sure that it's purely visible, all the open tasks that they have due, and being able to click on each open task and then actually go right into that Salesforce task. So now that they can come in here, change the status, and within 5 minutes, it's now updated inside here and will disappear from their dashboard. And like you said, looking at these tasks, you can see that some of them are associated with Salesforce, but some of them are actually associated with UpCounsel specific things, and the data doesn't exist necessarily inside Salesforce. So just a super cool platform. This has really empowered our reps to be more of those data explorers and more of those people who are able to kind of filter and create their own workflows and figure out what works best for them, and really kind of figure out how they can best improve their improve the process and make themselves more efficient. And it really made visible all the data that has typically been just reserved for an analyst to have to pull, or just reserved for a sales manager, and is empowering our sales team to kind of do that for themselves. So that was the demo. I just wanted to flip back and just kind of give some Salesforce tips. When we talk about using Salesforce, right, and specifically trying to do this type of integration, it's important that you don't use Salesforce as a data warehouse. You don't use it as a database. It's not good as a data warehouse. It's not good as a database. And this is one of the core reasons why we have Looker. Right? Looker sits on top of our data warehouse, and then of course, you've seen we've embedded it as a workflow tool into Salesforce. Obviously, I talked a lot about getting your data outside of Salesforce, so it's easier to pull it out, and then it's easier to kind of push it back in. And this really frees you up to create this kind of amazing workflow of being able to see your tasks and see the different actions and create those custom visualizations without having to build custom Salesforce integration. If you are using a lot of third parties, like we are using Truly for our phone system, it's important that you ask them to see if you can directly integrate with your data warehouse rather than having to go through Salesforce. And this just makes data quality, data consistency, ease of transformation so much easier. And that's something that we really pride ourselves on. And on top of that, we're actually saving money. It's a cost savings measure because we're not paying Salesforce for all that extra storage. And we're using Looker as that ETL tool. We're using Looker as that truly technical integration tool. So that's kind of the journey of sales, and specifically Salesforce with Looker, and the data journey that UpCounsel has taken and really empowered by Looker. The last thing that I like to kind of end on is really just highlighting the Looker support and just how great it is. I think a lot of us that are really familiar with Salesforce have become ingrained with just being able to reach out to support and having to have such a challenging time to get your question answered. And I always like to highlight just how great the Looker support is and how much they've been of help of us of setting up this integration and really, allowing us to, work with Looker and build these things very, very easily and getting that support that we need. So just, big thanks and shout out to Looker for that. But with that, I think I'll turn it back over to David.
All right, great. Thank you for that, Brad. We do have some questions that I'd like to ask our presenters, but I'd also like to remind our viewers that if you have any questions, simply type them into the question box provided and click on the Submit button. As I stated earlier, all questions will be answered via email, but if your question has not been answered during the live show, you will receive an email response to it within a few days. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and ask my first question to Dylan. Dylan, can you please elaborate on the centralization piece? How is that done?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So there's several different ways to sort of solve for this. A few of which I mentioned during the talk. One, you could use, there's a number of different vendors out there that have emerged to help solve this specific problem. They're kind of more new age ETL vendors where they're not focusing as much on the T part of that, the transformations. They're really just extracting and loading data from all your various sources and pumping it into a centralized database. There's vendors like Fivetran, RJ Metrics, Pipeline, Xplenty, Illuma, Segment, all sorts of good different tools like that. There's also a fair amount of public migration code that exists out there. And what I mean by that is, say you wanted to pull data from Salesforce on your own. You can do that with API calls. Looker in our GitHub repository, we have a ton of code that shows how we made these API calls and output it into the specific type of schema that we think is best optimized for analytics. And then we also have some things called Looker blocks, which you could plug on top of that, which help you really round out the LookML portion of your development. So those are available on our public GitHub. You can get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to set you up with those as well. And third, we also have professional services that can help with that sort of solution or help you arrive at a centralized data store. If you're interested in learning more about our services, though, I think it'd probably be better to have a conversation offline. So please just shoot me an email, Dylan@Looker, or just get in touch with us in general, and we'll be happy to walk you through that.
All right. Another question for you, Dylan. Why can't Salesforce.com create the types of custom analysis that you showed?
Sure. Good question. So I think there's so first of all, I'm speaking to kind of Salesforce's native analytics tool. I'm not sure what they call it, but I'm not referring to Wave, which is like their adjunct new offering, or their other in-house analytics solution. But essentially the types of reports that you're able to generate just aren't extremely flexible. You'll have a list of kind of items you can choose from a drop-down that you could enter in based on what's already existing in your database. You can do some filtering, but it's really just basically aggregating certain values, applying some filters, and then spitting it out as a report. It's not really doing these complex transformations, things like I was mentioning affinity analysis. If I buy X, what would I buy Y? Or what's the likelihood I buy Y? Those are transformations that can really only be done in the analytics realm, so using something like SQL. And I think Brad has some additional color to add there as well.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that, when you think of a custom analysis, right, a custom analysis is probably trying to show the full story. Maybe it's not just a sales story. Maybe you're an e-commerce business that has, data that's coming from your platform. And being able to combine that data with Salesforce data is really something that you can't inherently do in Salesforce. In order to do that, you would have to push all of that information into Salesforce. And then you're using Salesforce for something that it's really not meant to do. It's not meant to be this data warehouse or this database. It's meant to be a CRM. And it's a great CRM, right? But it's not one that's built for doing these kind of full story custom analysis. And that's really what I tried to highlight is showing that the power of bringing your data outside of Salesforce is really being able to combine it with other sources of data to get you that full story, to be able to give you that really end-to-end analysis. But then on top of that, also being able to transform it a lot easier than you would with a kind of Salesforce native reporting or even with, wave analytics.
So, Brad, does Looker cover all of the Salesforce.com reporting needs? How often do you need to use Salesforce.com reports?
Yes, I think important there that every single sort of person has their own kind of custom Salesforce implementation, and they do things a little bit differently in the sense of like what their workflow is, what the objects they're using, and it would theoretically really be impossible for Salesforce to provide that reporting out of the box. So we actually use no Salesforce.com reporting, and in fact use Looker for 100% of our Salesforce reporting. And it really is super powerful because we're pulling that custom workflow and that custom kind of schema that we've created inside Salesforce into our own data warehouse, and then our explorers are able to do those different transformations and create those different reports that you would have traditionally tried to accomplish or mesh together inside Salesforce. So just recapping there, it covers 100% of our reporting needs. And we don't use Salesforce reporting at all.
Interesting. Okay, thanks for that. Dylan, you mentioned Slack in your presentation. How does the Slack integration work?
Yeah, sure. So there's a few different ways you can get data out of Looker once you have Looker connected to your database. You can do so by either embedding a chart or a dashboard into another application, or you can use our API to call on information from Looker to populate another application, or you can just directly download the data to, again, Excel or Google Sheets or whatever the case might be, and even set up some live connections there so everything stays updated. Slack in particular was made using our APIs, so there's actually a video on our website that highlights that functionality pretty well and shows you how to use it. But essentially, you create reports within Looker, and then you can type them into Slack, and they will render in your Slack screen for you. And that's done through our APIs again.
All right, thank you. Dylan, I have a question here for you coming from one of our viewers. Ashish asks, what kind of success improvement rates can one expect with sales analysis tools?
Oh, good question. So that really is going to depend on kind of the state of your sales analytics as it stands right now. If you have very little automation in your current sales processes, this will certainly be very helpful. You can expect to see cost savings of whatever amount of time that people were previously putting into doing these automated activities. As far as increasing your pipeline or targeting customers better, again, that's really going to depend on where you stand right now, but constant iteration on that process of identifying customers, understanding how to convert them, that's something your organization should always be refining, as with any real successful business process. So you're probably doing some of that right now. Looker is going to give you the ability to get a much clearer picture of that information and a much more accurate picture of that information. So to the extent you're doing that now, Looker can certainly help you take it to the next level.
Brad, can you add anything to this?
Yeah, like one of the biggest areas that we have seen kind of improvement rates is just around workflow and seeing that our sales reps introducing Looker have spent on average 20% more time on the phone than they did previously, which means that they're spending less time navigating the tools, navigating our platform, navigating Salesforce, and more time selling, which is really great. On top of that, we've also seen attributable lifts in funnels, and we've seen a reduced cost of acquisition. But I don't want to just give you a random number. That would there's a combination of things to make that happen. But I think it's the one thing that stands out to me is that 20% additional call time that we've seen.
All right, very good. Well, it looks like those are all the questions that we have. I want to thank everyone who submitted questions, and also thanks to our speakers today, Dylan Morrison, Product Marketing and Analytics at Looker, and Brad Ruderman, Director of Analytics at UpCounsel. If you'd like a copy of the presentation, you can download it once the event is archived. And if you'd like to review this event or send it to a colleague, please use the same web address that you used for today's event. It will be archived for 90 days. Plus, as a courtesy, you'll receive an email once the archive is posted. And just for participating in today's event, you can win this Google Chrome Cast. The winner will be posted on destinationcrm.com on April 29th. Please visit our website to see if you're the winner. Also, if you stay on the console after the event, you'll automatically be directed to a hub with content on Looker's analytics for Salesforce data. This concludes our broadcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may now disconnect.